do it the next meeting. All right. Well, here comes, what's his name again? Yeah, I didn't see. What's his name? What's his name? We don't, so.
Oh, Mr. Bulgarian.
Yeah, Mr. Bulgarian.
I knew he was G in it.
He's been here long enough for us to swear him in his house.
Yeah, he needs like that civic service award.
That's right, and you know, I feel like doing that right now, because I want to not come back and forth.
Did he say it's gonna be? Tell you how big it's gonna be?
In the other meeting? No, he just say, he just talks to me.
Yeah, that's the choice between the two. Yeah.
Councilman Gonzalez, he says
Tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Yeah, came on the wrong day.
Perfect, so it's you or public works?
Okay, which one you want?
I mean, I don't know. Oh, wow. And you shouldn't even have it. Right on.
Well, let me tell you, I mean, I was coming here to say, I was thinking of finding it tonight.
Oh, I knew it.
I was gonna say to Helen, I can't stay, why? Because the College Planning Development. That is first of a series of neighborhood meetings regarding the CPC.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
But I'm not Helen, so you don't have to tell me.
Well, I'm telling you also, but you know, why the staff is.
Well, you want it all over the place, I understand, you man. Yeah, I mean.
Well, that's where I'm going now, this year, I couldn't stay,
Ma'am, please join us at the table, please.
I can't stay. So I'm sorry.
You deposit for,
That's
Yeah,
okay.
we're
make sure
thinking
not
about it.
the council people, ladies. The council, yeah, is she here? Oh, you know who's not here is Councilman Gunn. Can you just turn this stuff over? So they won't mistake you with the council. Okay.
This
Is that his seat?
is law.
Oh, a lot of companies put her thing right in front of her. Okay.
What?
Right.
I'm glad everybody went through everybody.
Crown, next the chairs.
Well, I
Long
don't
as
know,
you
it
go
all
over
things
there.
for the department, they usually ask over hundred.
Yeah, that's right, usually over there.
And I totally forgot it.
Susanna,
Susanna, that's right. How did I, remember I told you I never forget
like,
that?
oh,
You
Susanna.
Yeah, you haven't been with us for a while. One time we had two leaders in here. And one was over and the other was saying wasn't gonna move, so it's just loud. I'm like, look at us, we got legal fighting over our room.
You be safe.
Pleasure. Take care. You too.
Thank you.
Thank you for your wonderful public service.
Thank you.
Thank you, right?
You
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, tomorrow, finance.
Yeah. Where do you want to wait for my other customers or do you want me to?
I think.
What do you want to do?
I think you should give them.
No.
How late? But he said he's not coming.
Oh, is she coming sick or something? Oh, she's not coming.
No.
She know how important this is.
So we don't wanna have quorum for tonight.
We don't,
Yeah,
so-
someone-
Oh, that's what it sounds like, but I was gonna say.
It's gonna be an
let's give them
informational
a
meeting.
minute. You can't just die.
Yeah, I don't wanna keep people, they've been at work all day.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
they
so
took-
remember, yeah.
Get you back in.
You're right, a little bit. Now, it's not really don't give us like, if he said 5 minutes, we'll do that, but he could come on like 6. We'll get started at 3 minutes. 5:35, where we can get started at 5:35. A few more minutes.
There are no votes
Good afternoon, everyone. The meeting is now called to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Chairman Harris, Chairwoman
Yes.
Harris,
Present.
Vice Chairman Pichardo is absent. Councilman Gonzalez is absent. Councilwoman Althea Gray,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Ana Vargas is absent. We have 2 present, 3 absent. We don't have a quorum.
Okay. So tonight, because we don't have a forum, we're just gonna have a discussion. We have some great groups here tonight and we got excited about them coming. We don't want to waste their time. But Madam Clerk, before we get started, could you please read the first item on the
Sure. Item number 1, communication from His Honor the Mayor dated March 29, 2024, submitting the Community Development Block Grant Budget for program year 2024 to 2025. The following has been invited. Emily Friedman, Director of Housing and Human Services, Department of Housing and Human Services. The following has been invited for presentations. Open Doors Rhode Island, Nick Horton. Genesis Center, Shop Culinary Entrepreneurship Training, Shannon Carroll, President and CEO. First Works, Kathleen Fletcher, Executive Artistic Director.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna ask Emily to do what she always do, introduce us to this budget. And, yeah, and tell us what we have to do to get it out the door.
Right. Good evening, everyone. Emily Friedman, Director of Housing and Human Services, joined by my colleague.
William Facenti.
We are pleased to join you again this evening to present the proposed HUD entitlement grant budget on behalf of Mayor Smiley. To remind where we have left off, we are working to develop a budget based on assumed numbers. We do not yet have our set allocations from HUD, but because of the lengthy process to develop our action plan, we must develop a draft budget using assumed budget figures. So using our budget projections, we must work collaboratively to get this budget into a final form, substitute and pass out of committee so that the council can then conduct the 2 necessary local passages. This budget approved by the council will then be incorporated into a final annual action plan to be put out for the federally prescribed 30-day public comment period and submitted to HUD for their approval. We need to endeavor to have these steps completed and these HUD approvals in place by July 1st, the start of the new fiscal year, to avoid any delays in project initiation or gaps in agency contracts. So at this point in time, we need to have identified all projects before passage out of this committee so we can build into the action plan for HUD's approval. Our goal, to reiterate, is to pass out before the 5/10 docket deadline for May and June council passages. So our goal and our hope is that you will be working with Kyle and Sam on council staff to complete your identification of your eligible award projects, as those projects need to be incorporated into this ordinance to pass out of the committee and then into our action plan. Of course, if you require any assistance in identifying potential projects or wish to discuss, let's please prioritize those discussions this week. And staff are, of course, available in the council office and in Housing and Human Services to assist and advise. So please let me know if we can be providing any additional items to aid your consideration. We look forward to working through next steps, and if there are no further questions, we'll yield our time to these excellent organizations here to speak to you about their work.
Councilman Gray, do you have a question? Thank you. At this time, I'm gonna ask Sam. Sam, can you give us sort of an update on our award projects? And what have we been doing with the council?
As far as the projects that have been confirmed?
And confirmed.
Okay, so we have about 4 projects identified. One of them actually being Councilwoman Graves, which is, I think Kyle told you about it, it's wayfinding signage, the mapping portion of that. We're still working to identify the remaining counselors, and we should have the full list before May 9th. So we're working hard at it. You know, we're still waiting on some responses, but we should meet that deadline.
Thank you so much for that update. Congratulations, Councilwoman Gray, for being so top of the game. At this time, we're gonna start to listen to the presentations of our invited guests. So I'm gonna start with Nick Horton from Open Doors. Nick, join us at the table, and please identify yourself for the record. Waxworks. Find any available chair, you can take the bottom if you want to face us. They exit the table, so. Yeah, okay. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Councilwoman. So my name is Nick Horton. It's great to meet those of you whom I've not met before. I'm the co-director of Open Doors. Our agency has been around since 2003. I've actually been working there since 2004. So I've been a collaborator with the city for a long time now. We focus on providing services both to people in the criminal justice system coming out of prison, people that have criminal records, and also people that are homeless. We were the first and we are the largest agency dedicated specifically to this mission around justice involved individuals. Although over the past 4 years, our mission and the scope of our work has grown as we have taken on.
I'm sorry, I forgot to get you sworn in. I'm so sorry, you gotta swear. Please. A little delay.
Please state and raise your hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your full name and your current address for the record.
Nick Horton, and
You can do the Open Doors. Yeah.
I'm so sorry for that. Please continue.
What did we decide? Can he?
Yes,
You
you can
can.
share, so
Okay.
just for the clarification of the record, since we don't have a quorum and we can't vote to enter any exhibits into the record, you're more than welcome to refer to any exhibits, but they will
Yeah.
not be officially on the record until we can have a vote on that at another time.
Sounds good. I just wanted to bring up our annual report, which shows just sort of illustrates a little more than my words, some of the work that we do. So as I was saying, the scope of our work has expanded dramatically over the last 4 years with the housing crisis. Our agency in 2019 ran no homeless shelters, and we are now, I believe, the largest shelter provider in the state. We run a total of 230 beds of homeless shelter beds across the state, and in total 320 beds, which combines shelters, transitional housing, and permanent housing. Our main office is in Silver Lake on Plainfield Street, located in the only building in the state which is permanent housing specifically for people with felony records. It's Section 8 project-based vouchers. So it's 19 units of single occupancy housing. We also run 4 transitional houses, 3 of them in Providence, 2 for men and 1 for, in Providence, it's 1 for men, 1 for women, and our most recent project, actually, in Councilman Pichardo's ward is a house for women and children. If it's okay, I'm just gonna sort of scroll through just to show you some pictures quick so you can see a little bit more of our work. Actually, this cover photo is 2 of our staff members. Tina Bruce is our deputy director. She was actually just honored with the Human Rights Award at the most recent Juneteenth gala, and she is a very strong leader across the state for our mission. And here's some images of articles about our work over the past several years that have been in the news. There's actually a press conference when the mayor presented about some of the reentry missions of the city several years ago, including sort of our major collaboration with the city right now, which is a ARPA-funded driver's license reinstatement program. It's a total of $715,000 over 2 years to reinstate licenses of Providence residents who had their licenses suspended due to financial issues. And we've actually already met our goals. It's a collaboration between us and Amos House in service provision. Our goal is to reinstate 600 licenses, and we have prior already, even though the project ends in August. So I think that has been a huge benefit to people across the city. perhaps even broader than sort of our general mission. We've reached Providence citizens who, for no other reason than just having to economically struggle and being faced with large and sort of escalating fines for relatively straightforward driving issues. They are losing their license and can't get it back for years. One of our big initiatives over the last several years has been specifically around expanding services to just involve women. And we've opened up, as I mentioned, both a transitional house for women, which is located in Silver Lake, and a house for women and children, which is located in South Providence. Here's a photo of the playroom and a family that's living there. Actually, Emily visited not too long ago, along with here's my when as part of our opening. And here's some information about our shelters. We run the Motel 6 shelter, which is 120 beds in Warwick, which, although not being based in Providence, like our Pawtucket shelter, serve a lot of Providence residents. So actually one of the resources we're providing is really, that I'd say is the most critical to the city over the last several years, is helping Providence deal and avoid with homeless encampments, because we're providing places for people to go that would otherwise be on the streets of Providence. So this is our warming and cooling center in Pawtucket. It's the only 24-hour drop-in and overnight shelter for in the state where people can go without a referral. Houses about 50 people a night, and it's located on Main Street, just across the Pawtucket city border. So these are some photos from our shelters, and I like to talk about how we've really done a lot of work to try to work with communities in welcoming these projects into their backyards. So we have a shelter, for example, in the basement of our main office on Plainfield Street, right outside my office door. And before we opened it, we talked to the community, including the people that live in the building. We gave a vote. They voted to allow the shelter to open. Prior to opening up our shelter on the south side, I went door to door throughout the whole neighborhood, getting feedback from people. And we now collaborate with local schools that support the work that we do at that occasion. These are just some photos of our shelters. An interview with an individual who was living in our motel shelter and actually lives down the street from me. And some information about our employment program. Just a couple weeks ago, we had a second chance job fair located in Roger Williams on Empire Street that brought 16 employers and about 135 individuals. Here's some information about our policy work. Skip over that. It's not, and these are some photos of the individuals we help get driver's licenses. So that's sort of a summary of the work that we do. So that's appearing in Providence Municipal Court, where we appear regularly in front of Judge Lombardi and the others courts, and also in front of courts across the municipal courts and Rhode Island Traffic Tribunal. So I guess that's sort of a description of what we do as an agency, and just to talk briefly about the proposal that we gave you. It was a $50,000 request for funding that would fund overhead in staff in our resource center. Our resource center, which is located on Plainfield Street, on our main office, is sort of the hub of everything we do. And so this money supports that work, which doesn't really fall into any of the other funding sources like our shelters, which are supported by the Consolidated Homeless Fund. So any IndyCar programs which have this own dedicated funding source. But that resource center staff is crucial to all the work we do, is basically to get most of the services. You call in there, and that's where you start. That's where you do your intake. You're referred to our jobs program or our housing navigator, and that those staff we sort of have to cobble together funding from a lot of sources. We, for the last maybe 7 years, for a long time, we've pretty much been getting the same amount of funding, around $20,000 a year. we're continuing to hope for an increase because, as I said, we've gone from an agency that served probably around 500 people a year to one that serves around 2,000 people a year. Our agency basically has expanded fourfold over the last 4 years, and we believe that the work that we're doing is has a larger and larger role in the city, particularly as we've expanded the work around homelessness and help the city deal with that crisis. So that's a summary of our work. I guess one other thing I'd like to add is it's really fundamental to our mission and everything that we do that most of our staff are people who have overcome the obstacles of the people, similar to the obstacles of the people that we are trying to help. We are very much an agency that's led and staffed by people with lived experience with addiction, incarceration, homelessness, both at the at sort of all levels, at the entry level staff, the management staff, and the board level. Are there any questions, any information you guys would like to think about?
Yes, you can please have a seat, yeah, get comfortable. Councilwoman Gray, do you have anything for me now?
Go back over my notes that I scribbled. Homeless shelter. You said that's located in Pawtucket and serves about 160 people? Is that what you said per night?
So Motel 6 houses 120 to 130 people a night. That's located in Warwick, and then we have a warming center in Pawtucket, which has a capacity of 60 people.
So 60,
Yeah.
okay. And the rest are in the hotel. You said that,
No, go ahead, continue.
okay, you have, what has been your level funding so far?
We've been funded around $20,000 a year for the last 5-6 years.
Okay, and you're asking for 50,000,
Roughly 50,000.
and that's mainly for your employees.
Yeah, the employees in our resource center, so that includes the intake position and sort of part of an intake position, part of a housing case manager.
Where else? Considering that you have grown so quickly and largely, where else are you getting these fundings from?
So the vast majority of the funds that have resulted in this growth are from the State Department of Housing. Originally, these are largely pandemic related funds that the state has used to expand shelter capacity by about 30% over the past year, including opening up projects such as our 2 new shelters. That funding we expect to be largely consistent over the next year as the governor recently introduced a budget amendment to try to maintain shelter funding and shelter capacity over the next year. In addition to the Department of Housing funding, some of which, I mean, it's consolidated homeless fund money to an extent, so some of which originally comes from the city of Providence. The rest of our funds are sort of the same, it's all sort of federal money that flows through the state. So the governor's workforce board, it's a lot of federal money that flows to the state, we get funding from them every year. We also get a significant amount of funding from United Way, Competo Foundation, Champlain Foundation, and Renewal.
Champlain, isn't that? I'm surprised, but are they funding your Champlain? Because then I thought it was housing and that type of thing for that. No?
Champlain does physical capacity projects. They don't fund housing per se generally, but they fund buildings and so and other capital projects. So I actually did contribute to the Women and Children's House that we opened because that wasn't permanent housing. They helped us afford the renovations for that project.
And because it has grown so significantly, what are you forecasting? I know it's hard to say, but are you forecasting it to continue? Or pray the Lord that it ends, you don't have to worry about it anymore.
So I mean, we anticipate, I think statewide, that homelessness will get worse before it gets better, unfortunately. The need is gonna continue to grow based on the data that is coming in right now. Our agency at the moment is not looking to grow, we're a little tired. And we're looking to just sort of maintain our capacity, at least for the next 6 months, without taking on any new big projects. And take some time to just sort of make sure that we're doing everything well before we add a lot of new,
One more, let's go, Councilwoman. You said you had the, second chance, job fair. How did that go?
It went great. We, for example, one of our collaborators, the COO of our board, or sorry, the COO of the Easton Battle is on our board. They're a local sort of catering company. They were there, they took 6 job applications. Like I said, there were 16 companies, and there were 9 sort of resource tables from everything from schools to SNAP that were there. We co-organized it with Roger Williams. So it was the largest, this is our third, it was the largest one we've all put together, and keep doing them. We're also looking for funding for that. Right now it's entirely unfunded, so while that's not a line item in this budget that we submitted to you, that it would certainly allow us to be able to continue that work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Nick, I have a question around couples. Do you have shelter for couples? I know it's a lot of couples that are.
The Motel 6 is has, I believe, 20 rooms for couples. It's 20. It could be wrong about that. It could be less. There aren't a lot of couple shelters.
No, it isn't.
It's more couples beds across the state.
Right.
So it is one of the few locations where that is allowed. Yeah.
And so you have at least 20 for couples.
Yes. Yeah.
How do people find you? Do they go through the coordinated entry system?
So for Motel 6 and for our Providence men's shelter, people get referred to the coordinated entry system. The Pawtucket warming and cooling center is unique because it's the one place where you don't need a referral. It's sort of designed for that purpose, so that the state has a place to sort of fill that function for someone who's calling, can't get in. Well, you can try and get a spot tonight immediately at this location if you really need it. So we can't take everyone, but we're usually able to fit people in on a short-term basis there. And they don't generally get a bed, but they are able to spend the night.
Motel 6, how's that going? We heard a lot of, in the past, complaints from the people in Warwick, and how's that going for the people who are there now? Because that Motel 6, your project, just opened up when?
We opened up a year ago.
A year ago.
Rise has been running the shelter there, a smaller shelter for a little while. A lot of the news reports that you hear about that location have nothing to do with the shelter. So you'll hear something like so-and-so was arrested at the motel. Those are often just motel customers. We have a great relationship with the motel owner and also the mayor of Warwick and the police department. Not to say that the location is entirely without its challenges, but I think they all feel that us being there has improved the environment. We have, for example, residents who go out and pick up trash in the area on a weekly basis. And it's because with the funding from the Department of Housing, we've been able to have enough staff to really run a relatively structured environment there. So we have people checking bags every time someone comes in, things like that.
Do they get paid for picking up trash, like Ava's house?
No, they're just basically picking up trash on site, like on the edges of the property. So we sort of see it as bettering their home. And there are enough people there that are look for something to do, that they're willing to do it. And, you know, it's become an important way for us to maintain our relationship with the neighbors.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, that's a good start, yeah, building relationships. My other question is sort of a little off, so be patient with me. I know from your work, from the time you left college, you've been working with men that have been a part of the prison system, even helping pass the right to vote back in the day. So I'm just wondering how much of this have taken, swayed you away from the work that you have been doing very much all your, since you left college. I know you're older now. Around the prison, and
Yeah.
I know you have the job fair, but what about housing? Is that a priority for you, for men who get out of prison to make sure they have shelter?
Well,
Is that your priority
it is
and then the
a-
other part?
It is an insightful question, because it's something our board has been talking about pretty much nonstop for the past 6 months, is the idea of mission creep. Are we getting away from our mission of only serving justice involved individuals and focusing on incarceration, help with the homelessness crisis? Obviously, there's a ton of overlap, and that's why we continue to do it. We're able to help so many people with criminal records because we've expanded like this. I think it certainly does take away from that singular focus. We are here to help people getting out of prison, to be doing this other work. But we are, in general, just a much more capable organization because of it. And in terms of focusing on housing for people with criminal records, you know, we have done sort of all of it at the same time, right? We opened up in the past 4 years 3 transitional houses for justice involved people. One for men, one for women, one for women and children. And sort of further projects are really gonna focus on that. So for example, we have a application in with List Rhode Island next, that we're meeting on next week to try to expand or develop a master leasing program specifically for people with records that would allow us to lease properties and then sublease to clients. Yeah, it's still very much where our mind is.
Just give me a second, Councilman, both of them coming at the same time. Okay, all right. All right. Councilwoman Bergen, good to see you again.
Me too.
So Nick has been sharing with us his,
We are. Our
his tremendous work, housing, so you sort of familiar with doing that area.
Yes, our headquarters
We are talking to Nick, and I know you wanted to talk to Nick, so he was one of the people, so you're just in time. Oh, yes, I will, yes. One. Sam, can I have your shift yourself, because I need to counsel. Councilman, I need you far, no, I need to say, Councilman, I need you that far away from me, you're part of the committee, so I need to. So we're gonna bring a chair up, we're gonna sit around like a monopoly. Yeah, put me on. Start with first. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Zach. You're welcome.
So, thank you. Let the record show that Councilwoman Anna Vargas is here, and also Pro Temp, Juan Machado is also here, please, let the record show.
So noticed.
So we're in a conversation, we tried to hold Nick hostage until you got here, because we knew how much you wanted to have a conversation with him. So I have a very last question, and then Nick has shared with us his tremendous work. My question is moving towards your funding. The councilwoman is very much sees that. What I say, we would love to see this work continue. So right now it's 2 years of funding. And we would like to see that sustained, and especially if you're, you know, the work you're doing and overlapping everything. Your relationship with our delegation, our Congress delegation, who have been very active around housing. What's your relationship with them?
with the
Our
Councilman, Ammo and Magaziner.
Yes, those are the popular names that I know.
So, to be honest, we haven't worked directly with their offices. Yeah, I mean, Congressman Amo is new enough, I mean, I know him for years from when he was working at State House. And I know Councilman Magaziner from in charge of his office.
But they are pushing housing, especially low and moderate housing, right? Are they, that's something they're very much interested in, or? You know,
I mean, we're not a CDC, we don't develop generally, housing where. We didn't apply for any of the, Rhode Island housing application cycles over the past several years. The project that we did in, Councilman Pichardo's ward is sort of the closest thing we get to sort of housing development, which is just sort of renovating existing houses into transitional houses. Which actually doesn't get any federal funding. There's no federal funding for transitional.
for renovating.
For transitional housing period, it doesn't fall under any of the HUD guidelines for developing housing. And we haven't, aside, since 2011, when we developed the building, Councilman Vargas's ward, we haven't developed any permanent housing.
Thank you. Councilman Pachada.
Well, not really. I mean, I know. I think I've spent enough time at Nick now. But I think he's answered all my questions before. While the project in Elmwood is already done, it started off as a bumpy road, but we got through it, and lessons learned, and he shared with me some of the things that could have gone better, but we got through it. The program at the corner of Elmwood and Atlantic Avenue is one that is servicing families and children, which is always dear to all of us and me, and I think that's it's hard to say to be indifferent on that.
Right.
I think moving forward, I mean, they continue to grow, and I've expressed certain concerns, but also I think the expansion of getting some other funding for the programs to service families and children, and obviously not forget men either. It's just that in certain communities we always have some issues with it, and so, but through dialogue and conversation, we can make things work in the city of Providence to make sure that people do have some place to call home for a temporary time, and also I know that their agencies have done good work, especially in the area of where Councilman Vargas, he may have some other comments to say, but no, I think this money goes. Well, my understanding is that the money goes pretty much spread out through the city of Providence, and not just on Elmwood, not just over there, but it's just more service and other stuff.
Yeah.
And I think for future, there's a lot of need, as Ms. Freeman has illustrated to us, that there were about $19 million request this year, correct? Close to 19 million, and we're only giving 4.2 million,
Right.
which that's the only money that we received. So I implore all the organizations to seek for additional funding, because I think that some other organizations in the community also need that entry into the CDBG money to be able to support their work. So, thank you.
Let the record show that Councilman Oscar Vargas have joined us as well.
So
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilman, do you want to add to? I know it's in your some of the work is in your ward as well.
Yeah, it is. Thank you very much, Nick, for being in. How many women do you have in the house now?
We're talking women.
Here goes the women house.
Yeah, so the house in,
Farming.
the house in this ward is our women's transitional house. So yeah, we have a program in every separate, Councilman James, you don't have one in your ward. So
Yeah, it's okay. So 14 persons, right? And the program is helping them. It's been a year now, more than a year.
Yeah.
So far, it's been working very well for these people, and it's a big help for them. Out of the 14, these are the 14 persons who start the program, or they been moving along?
Yep, yeah, some people stay a very short time, some people stay around a year. There's been it's been almost a year and a half since it opened. We've had 44 or so people live there at some point. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's great. It's going along. It's a good program. Also, I made some folks from the open doors on Plainfield Street. Let's go. And are they going back to help the community doing the gardening program that they have?
Yeah, so, right, we work with an organization called Garden Time that trains a lot of people that are our residents and other individuals that have records in, arbory and gardening, and they're involved with the tree planting program that goes around and plants trees across the city, so, yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Councilwoman Fathers. Well, thank you for coming.
And thank you for giving all the time. Yeah, no, the program I believe is, working and improving, yeah. And we have a little team, for the neighborhood, it's good.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Grace.
We're talking about the different groups. Which is the one, because I'm sure there's some pushback on some of this. Is it more toward just the men, or just the women, or the family? Which group seems to be easier to get into a community? Because I can see some people saying, I don't know about these men, they just got out of jail. Where they might be a little bit more forgiving on women and family.
Yeah, that is true. I think every project has its challenges. But the project we opened up in Councilman Vargas's was very smooth. I mean, that people barely even knew that we were there. That there have been no issues with a single neighbor. That's a woman's transitional house. It's just been very quiet. So the project that we have in Councilman Vargas's ward is actually probably one of our more challenging ones because it's permanent housing. So if people are breaking the rules, we can't just evict them. It's a lot harder to deal with challenging tenants in that building.
Because they have all the rights of any other tenant.
They have all the rights of any tenant and more. I mean, in a Section 8 federally funded project, it's not like you can just decide not to lease to someone after a year. It's not like an infinite lease. So it's very challenging, yeah.
If there's no more questions from the committee, I want to thank you for coming and thank you for sharing your work.
Thank you.
I mean, I've learned some new stuff today because I didn't know how, how much you have grown, like Councilman said, how you've grown. It's interesting to know that people are definitely moving around the state. It's really interesting because from Pawtucket to Warwick and it's really interesting now. Do you have a waiting list of folks that are waiting to get in a course?
Yes, so on each program, the permanent housing in Silver Lake has about a 3-year wait list. The shelter system through CES, right, there are currently about 500 people total on that wait list. And the motel shelter is probably one of the highest in demand in the state. So there are people that specifically want that location. Our transitional house has people waiting. We have one in Pawtucket that's specifically for men coming out of prison. So there are people sitting in prison right now waiting for beds to open. So yeah, everything's pretty needed. I wanted to also just add a sincere, very strong thank you to the council for the support you've all given us over the last several years. It has been more funding, more support than we've ever received. We were the very grateful recipients of 2 large ARPA related projects. Thank you very much, and I hope we have done well with the funding.
It sounds like we've done really well from the presentation tonight. Again, I want to thank you for coming and presenting to us the work we've been doing, and keep up the good work. If there's any time we can offer a support letter to our delegations, once you get in their ear, we're here, because we appreciate the work you're doing. Continue to house as many people as you can, and keep the vision that your organization has. We appreciate it.
And when you have a cookout,
Thank you.
they have a
Thank you.
very nice house.
Thank you. Great, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, did you want to have Mr. Horton's exhibits entered into the record?
Yes, we can. Let's enter, I'll take a motion to enter Mr. Horton's exhibits into the record. I'll make a motion. Motion been made by Councilman Graves, second by Councilman.
Exhibit number 1, right?
Exhibit number 1. All in favor?
Aye.
Right, motion passed.
You just send that over to all of us?
Oh.
An email?
Oh, they will be able to make.
Oh, they have it?
Yeah. Thank you again. All right, we have now Genesis Center, CHOP, Culinary, Enterprise, Training with Shannon Apparel. Is she here? No. Okay, so let's back that off. All right, we'll move on to First Works. Looking forward to talking with Kathleen, right here.
And
She's exact, obviously right there, yeah. Please, I'm gonna have to swear it in, both of you sworn in. Please.
Please, please say. Oh, sorry, raise your hand. This is my first time. It's just like.
You've always preferred.
You swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Please state your full name and your title for the record.
Kathleen Fletcher, Executive Artistic Director of First Works. Methods Member, Education Director at First Works.
Thank you.
Thank you both for being here today. Madam Clerk, I have an exhibit. Please pass up the rest.
Nice, you all have them.
I'll take a motion, to enter this exhibit. I make a motion. Motion been made by Councilwoman Gray, second by Councilwoman Providence. All in favor? Aye. Enter this exhibit too. All righty, we're excited to hear your presentation, so welcome to get started.
Thank you, and we have this to go with it, but, you know, first of all, I'm also the founder of First Works. First Works started in 2004, and we started with a $15,000 grant from the city. From there, we have grown, and we're celebrating our 20th anniversary this Thursday, and adapted and really thought about what it means to be a nonprofit in this city and what we can provide to this city. Our center is live performance in a lot of ways, and that's how we're most publicly known. I think the city council knows us as the partner, actually the partner who founded what's now PBD Fest. But that's the most visible piece. And behind what we do with live art performance is really the strategy of how it transforms our community. And that is what I'll say with this first fact. Thanks, Sam, and I don't usually do this way today. that has meant being in many different, we call ourselves itinerant, we move around, we're in different places with performances, different schools, and gathering audiences in different ways. And COVID was one of those points where this organization really transformed and really thought about arts access and young people and children, and how also families heal through live performance. So primarily what we're going to talk about, and having Sam here will trade places because she's the education director and in the schools and with the students and the principals and school districts, well, school district here. But just to give a context of starting and forging partnerships that have continued with schools, with teachers. Sam will talk about last month and the projects with Mount Pleasant High School. And CDBG has really played a part of that. So when we started in 2004 as the first partnership with the Department of Art, Culture and Tourism, we were really about how a festival brings the community together. In about 2012, we started to formalize our education program. So we had 125 students. We now annually serve 2,000 students. The proposal that you have for CDBG is for 1,500 students in Providence. And we kind of look at how it all knits together and what we've been able to do over 20 years. Yeah, so arts education over 20 years, and that's really over 14 has reached 19,000 students since our program began. And those students have been learning from local artists who we consider world-class. When we say world-class, you know, we are also talking about C.B. Micah, who is a deep part of our program, Becky Bass, but we're also talking about, you know, marquee names like Wynton Marsalis and Jazz at Lincoln Center coming in, talking with our students, performing with our students, the students in Providence, and helping them learn not how to be better artists or how to appreciate art, but really how to be empowered through art, through their own lives, their learning, arts integration in the classroom. At the bottom, one of the stats we follow is when COVID hit, all that live interaction for teachers, for all of us, right? Restaurants, the film arts were shut down, and we immediately pivoted to a virtual learning library and a virtual stage, which in our last audit had reached 100,000 views and counting. And as part of the work that we have done in the past few years, also, and part of the work that we want to do more of, having a Duolingo website, looking at how our programs are responsive to the fact that I think it's 70%, and Sam may have the percentages more burned in than I, but our English as a second language. And so we're trying to be responsive and meet kids where they are. Just another picture that gives you kind of an overview. First words. Mainly a picture, but you can read it in your packets actually, but for those of you who remember the One Night Festival of the Arts first night, that is where we started. 18 years of a festival that at its time was just such a wonderful part of this community. Times and needs changed, and I was artistic director of First Night and founded First Works. And through the years we grew. You know, we grew from the idea of festivals, which are still at our core, because that means arts access, that means young people being able to perform and learn and have artists who are in Providence, based in Providence or come into Providence, really interact with them in their schools, doing big projects. We did a year-long project with Yo-Yo Ma, the Silk Road Project. So the biggest part people know of that was the sold-out performance at PPAC, but it was a whole year of going into schools and using the curriculum and learning the geography of the Silk Road and having musicians. I can remember in the basement of Classical High, a student coming up and jamming with the Silk Road musicians, having that kind of interaction. We went on to really secure outside funding. The National Endowment for the Arts has been a major funder of ours. Just today, we counted, and it's 31 grants since we started. 3 of those are the founding grants of what's known PPD Fest. So that's $275,000 that we brought into the city. And you know, at the time, that was probably about half our budget. But love the idea of having the central core be the arts and seeing how it spreads out into urban development. Part of the start of the festival was what was Washington Street and vacant spaces, and how could we knit them together? Different landscape now, but a lot of people remember the picture of One Financial Plaza and the dancers on the building. And that was more than just a showy thing. Those were also dancers who worked with students, who had dinners at Southside Cultural Center to exchange with artists and learn the story of our community. Artists from Providence actually went to Oakland, where these dancers are based. So the idea of exchange, and again, the idea that it is live performance, but it's not just the show on the stage. It is in the upper corner, the green. I have to take my word for this. This is Black Violin, who worked with students on stage, students from community music works. And that kind of cross, pollination, that kind of communication is part of why I am so convinced that the arts are a strategy community. And one thing that we started in COVID that we are continuing now in its 5th year is a series at Roger Williams Park. Largely at this point, our public programs are free, and our school programs certainly are free. And unless I have one more slide, I think, well, yeah, this is what I was talking about, Roger Williams Park, and I'm pretty closest to him. The idea of the casino at Roger Williams Park, we went from the boathouse lawn and pop-up performances with spray painted circles to the bandstand. And I find it a really interesting thing to think that the bandstand in the 30s, thousands of people came for concerts. But when First Works 4 years ago started to do performances and workshops, and last year Connect our artists with students in the summer camp program that Sam was part of starting up, a key part of starting up, that this is the first time that space had been used in that way. Weddings, for sure, but as a performance person, the idea of transforming space, whether it's parking lots or, the bandstand, which is right to be what it was originally built for, and the role that family has in our education program is kind of the center. And I think I maybe started to say, as we built our education program, actually CDBG, thank you so much, was a real part of what can we build. And we were not funded last year. The role we had through the festival in ARPA was kind of an overlap, although that money didn't go directly to our programs, but we're the key partner in the festival. And at this point, the past years have been a real model change. We have a strategic plan that has education as one of our core strategies to build, and that has happened in some really comprehensive ways. So turn it over to you, and Sam, you can tell me about it.
Sure. The mouse a little bit, I've just been like rolling it.
Thank you.
It's okay, mess up. It's very expensive. Hey, everybody, I'm Sam. And I've been with First Works since 2022, in January. And so since last October, I've been working essentially as an education director, transitional, and then becoming education director. After my former colleague, Dr. Jamal Jorge left, but we built and expanded, and I learned so much from him. First Works Education. So we reach 2,000 students annually, and we have over 40 arts learning experiences.
from the last year. Two of our big pillars, and this is one of the main reasons why I joined First Works in the Education Department, are Raise Your Voice, which celebrates diverse voices and diverse arts forms, and Earthworks, which promotes environmental stewardship broadly, and also action-based. And when we say arts within education, while our main focus is performing arts, we also like do visual art components and hands-on art components, depending on what our programs are. That's okay. All right. So we've got, similar to our regular programming, we appear in many different venues, and within education, that's within many different schools, within community partner venues, such as to the right, you see a photo from our out-of-school programming when we took one of our summer camps to the Hong Kong Museum for arts enrichment and storytelling. Part of the CDBG support would go towards tech for popping up in a gym and making it a performance venue. As you can see, there's this group, Nabuo Polynesia. They're a local Polynesian dance company that's been around since 1988. These girls grew up dancing with that dance company and were performing for some elementary schoolers here in this photo. And it wouldn't have been possible without tech support from, again, our artist and like dear partner in so many different ways, so many different hats. Maiga has been helping us a lot with tech. Below, you actually see a preview of what's going to happen this Thursday, where Soledad Barrio and Noche Flamenco are coming to a school in Central Falls. We would love for this to happen in Providence as well, but this is an example of our programming that shows up in schools, and we're trying to be really intentional. This is going to be a lecture demonstration that's bilingual, so it's going to be in English and in Spanish, reaching lots of kids for better understanding, and also celebrating the culture. I think you gotta go up one. Yeah. So this past March, one of the proudest moments of my time at First Works was having a huge matinee in the glorious historic auditorium of Mount Pleasant High School. We had over 800 students from around Providence come and join for this performance with this really special group, Small Island Big Song. These are artists from 16 different island nations across the Indian and Pacific Oceans. They're from diaspora starting in Taiwan 1,000 years ago. And it's so incredible because while they span from Mauritius all the way down to like Rapa Nui, off the coast of Chile, like they have so much in common from their common ancestry and the way that they, these First Nation cultures have a beautiful relationship and sustainable relationship with nature, and are now sharing the common experience of being frontline communities in the time of climate change. So they were talking about all of that through their art, through their music, with all of these students at our matinee. But what's not featured here are all of the additional educational programs that happened through their artistic residency. So there were dance programs in elementary schools where students were learning Mauritius Sega dance with artists, with live music components. There were lecture demonstrations where high schoolers were learning about shared seafaring heritage. It was a really rich residency, and we were so grateful to be able to work with this intentional group this way. Something that stemmed from time with Jamel Jorge as well was creating artist educator residencies. So this is a really beautiful part of our education program where we are working with talented local artists and bringing artists into classrooms with specific groups of students over and over again. So they build a relationship for usually 4 to 6 workshops throughout the school year, and can do an in-depth project or series of projects with artists. So the example that you see here is in Olneyville. It's our 2nd year working with Debate Elementary School with the same artist educator, Eli Nixon. who has a really strong, focus on environmental themes, and is an activist in the community as well. And so last year, you see the photo to the left, those are the fifth graders, and that iteration of organism flag making was learning about any organism all over the world, building flags together, and then learning movement and team building and having social emotional skills built in addition to celebrating biodiversity. A lot of students chose animals are cool, but some students also chose organisms, including plants, from like their country's origin, which is pretty cool. And this year, Eli is working with the fourth grade art club, same art teacher, so we have a second year relationship with this teacher. And we're focusing on local organisms. So kids have done research. We went to the library, big fans of the library. Libraries are doing so much for our communities. So building that relationship and getting kids in touch with books rather than just Google searching, learning about their animals, building a relationship with their organisms. There's some plants in there too. I keep forgetting about them. But they're going to be part of a parade that's a collaboration with the Penobscot River Watershed Council. At the end of May, students are going to parade their flags down to the river, and they're going to release fish that they've had raised in their classroom as a partnership with the Penobscot River Watershed Council, and it's going to be really beautiful. And after that, their flags are going to go up in the Old Eagle Public Library again, as they were last year, and we're really hoping that we can bring students there as well to get library cards before summer. So really trying to build a rich residency within community spaces. Another aspect of the education program is our youth board. So this was started last year. This is our second year youth board. We had about half returning members from last year. Other folks graduated. And on our youth board, we're grateful to be connecting with high schoolers, you know, who are otherwise sometimes a tough crowd. So they actually help us give a lot of feedback to help us improve our programming, giving really interesting perspectives. And from us, they get to learn about all the different careers that are part of First Works, how a nonprofit works, how we partner. They were very interested in PPE Fest. So we're able to cater our programming and youth board to meet their interests and their needs. And Allison Cristales, who's on the right, who's also an intern with us through the Met School. So it's been really beautiful to get to know all of these really ambitious, talented young people this year. We've got our last meeting coming up mid-May. This is a stipended program. We always have food when folks come to our meetings, and yeah, we're excited to continue.
And I think this is kind of wrapping it back to the integration of arts. So in our education program, we talk about arts integration. What Sam is talking about, his teachers means for using a curriculum, for taking things back into the classroom, for advancing what their work is through the experiential learning of the arts. But in our strategic plan, it's really also the integration of the live performance we do in Roger Williams Park, and how businesses on Broad Street, as we grow, as we work to grow, are involved, and how it becomes a kind of ripple effect. For, in the case of the CDBG proposal, really for youth and for teachers and for school districts, the kind of need and requests we are getting to mount programs in the summer. As we have done a summer camp for 10 years in our earlier years. It was underwritten by Cato Corporation and His and White family for 2 summers last summer with Suffolk School District. A few weeks ago, Providence School District reached us, but the capacity to answer that need and that everything that addresses for youth really depends on our capacity. Our program is largely support income and from some very small and some notable sources, Rhode Island Foundation, United Way. But the CDBG part of that has been really important to what we can do in Providence. And essentially, our plan took about 18 months. It involved community listening. Also, the landscape was changing constantly. The various live programs were canceled, and the snap of the fingers and the festival. And as I said, we moved into virtually learning and teacher training. And we are back with plans in the future. And I think within 20 years, and this is first one. I think that's very exciting. So yeah, there's always a lot more to say. Yeah. But maybe move back over there. All right.
Any questions from the committee? I know it's Councilwoman Vargas.
I want to stand up and say thank you, Kathy. Because the first words, or first nights, so I have my bottom, I always take it.
Really?
Yeah, I have to make it because I always take it at the bottom, and my kids, we have a good time. So I hope we can bring it back to Providence. And bring it, so I know you have a lot, I went to another performance, I love art.
You were at Mount Pleasant.
Yes, I went to one place, so thanks for coming. I wanna say thank you for all the work that you do. And giving a lot of fun to the people, you know.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman.
First of all, thank you very much for your presentation, and thanks for the outreach. I know I received a couple of calls from you, Kathleen, to try to make my alma mater, Mount Pleasant. And I heard it was obviously right now and even after it was a wonderful performance. So congratulations on that. Just a couple of questions. You've evolved to a 20-year organization. Sounds like you're now statewide pretty much. Is that what?
We
has
are
evolved
working
into?
on statewide, but Providence is where we're based
Yeah.
and is the mainstay of our programming, our live performances and our education. But we really also value kind of weaving the whole state together.
Yeah.
And that is an important position to us.
And that's part of your strategic plan going forward, expanding to other communities?
That is to ground in the creative capital, but yes,
Yeah.
to weave us together as a state.
Would you mind sharing that strategic plan with us? I don't know if it's a
Not at
public
all.
document.
Send it
but,
to you hard copy,
yeah.
and also, this is pretty fresh off the press in hard copy, but happy to email it.
Sure, yeah.
Or we can
that'd be-
discuss.
that'd be great, yeah. And then my other one is in terms of the community fest, right? It started off with in 2004 and have evolved. Are you at all, the organization involved with PDD Fest?
Yeah,
You
we
mentioned it, but
we are the co-founder and the co-producing partner. So yes, they're very involved with PDD Fest. I don't lead with that, and even Councilwoman Vargas, I love the first night connection, but one of the things that can happen as we're talking is that sometimes the scale and, you know, the event can eclipse the fact that there have always been kind of deep strategies under this. So, you know, I love that things make people happy, but yes, to answer your question, we, not only started it as First Words Festival on the Plaza, and then when Mayor Alorza was selected, he had an idea for a festival, and we joined forces and renamed it, and then through an RFP process, have a multi-year contract as producing partner, always be founding partner.
great, thank you.
And as part of what we do with that, there is also a piece that says First Works Arts Education needs to weave into how do the students benefit from what, you know, sometimes upwards of 125,000 people have attended, but then artists will go into schools, or artists, Quinton Marsalis will start in schools, which as at Lincoln Center, those students will be on stage. There has been a youth stage that really features young performers, so combinations of workshops, what we now call assembly tours, and students actually making and performing at the festival.
Thank you.
Most of what I do in education is not, at fests, like we do programming throughout the year.
Yeah.
Councilmember Graves.
I too want to say thank you for that. I love art also. And I was one of the ones that did Emancipation Day for almost 30 years. So I know how much goes into making these things happen.
Well, we stand on shoulders, really feel that.
My question is, we have other committees, and I was not just on one that last week, you know, that. Is there any talks about we're trying to stop the graffiti? We know that when you put the murals on the wall, that helps stop the graffiti. Is there any chance we can get some of these students and these artists to do some of the walls of businesses? Because the police are not going to be there all the time to stop it. We also know that they're not really being fined that much to deter them, you know. And it takes away from the beautification of the city. Don't get me wrong, if they're doing it really nice, that's one thing, but just to have your name tag, the tags and stuff, it just doesn't, it looks terrible. So I don't know if it's on your plate, but could you maybe toss it in the corner of one of your plates?
You know, I think it is kind of not our direct mission, and yet students are creating murals and there is interest in that. And I think also we are an organization whose vision is to be an essential partner. And that's an interesting realization. You know, we're not musicians, we're not dancers, we're not one thing. We are our partners, and there's been a lot of interest from students and in education and in the schools in terms of murals. And then part of PDD passed this year is actually commissioning the mural.
Okay, I can speak a little to that too.
Okay. Didn't hear a thing.
We're like a performing arts organization, but like I said, there's a little more flexibility within education. And education, I like to approach meeting community needs and interests, and student needs and interests as well, with all of our programming. So we are actually in conversation because there's been interest in murals from Tuckett once approached us about a mural. We've had an artist and former lead camp counselor who's very interested in doing valuable murals with students, and I'm in conversation with a muralist. We've worked with Savannah Rassok, who's a muralist, who's done a canvas mural with multiple groups, our campers, summer campers one year, as well as at St. Paul's High School last year. So we're definitely doing visual art. Kids love participating in giant murals. So I would love to do more of that. Fingers crossed, we're talking to a couple artists now.
And not just for children. The Capitol Hill Diner, the one on Smith Street, that mural that's on the side over here. Well, that's a fairly new one. There was another one before that, and we had the people come from Carrolltown and the Senior Center, all throughout the neighborhood. I'm a horrible honest when it comes to using my hand. My voice is my problem. Dry, that's not me. But I actually painted 4 of those gold bricks. That's the only thing they gave me is one color. Fine. But that's okay. You gotta know your limitations. So, so I think maybe we can pull them in because you said the libraries and you said the schools. Is there any way to join the young with the old?
I love that. I think that's a beautiful idea. And we've worked with artists in the past who've done work like that, not with us, but I'm thinking of Jeffrey Warren and Aisha, Jen Silva. They were doing some intergenerational storytelling projects. So yeah, very interested, and that would be a beautiful way to build community. Yeah.
Councilman Vargas, do you wanna add?
Sure, I want to say thank you for taking, going back to William Lake. That's my school.
Oh, nice.
It's my area.
Yeah.
So by the way, we planted 4 trees there Saturday. Out of 25, we want to put in 25 more in the back. And it's a great program for the kids to get involved. And I would like to get involved when I see that they're releasing a fish.
Oh, yeah. May 23rd is the Thursday.
May 23rd.
Yeah.
Let me write it down.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think, you know, our sub-headline here is connecting art with audiences, but part of having Councilwoman Vargas and some of the other invitations and making them personally is saying, how do we weave us together? You know, and I think COVID was such a huge disruptor, but also one of the Pell lectures some years ago had an author whose book was Invitation to the Party. And if you want there to be a community, how do you invite them? So I really appreciated the calls back. And I'm kind of a shy phone caller, but I felt kind of reinforced. And I think Mount Pleasant High School, and this is something that I really appreciated, a point that Sam grounded in for the location of that assembly that brought 10 schools together, is also a story about the school and what's happening at the school, what the future of the school is. So it's wonderful. It was a great show and everybody enjoyed it. And of course you want that, but you also want, does this have meaning to do this at this time with these people in this place?
And do we know the teacher who's gonna support that?
And do we have a champion?
Yeah.
And a relationship? So
Not even possible without the LNC.
Okay, I'm so happy to hear this presentation. First of all, I think you've answered one of my questions. When you speak of art, are you speaking of instruments, dancing, and you must have a lot of staff to do that, right? You have different people who have different skills, or are you multi-talented? That you're able to.
We have a small staff. We also have an empty position as a result of, you know, all the changes in earned income, empty position in education. So the capacity question, when we're asked, could you do a summer camp this summer if you have funding, but we needed you, we don't have that capacity.
We were
To
asked
answer
very
all the needs. Yeah, we were asked.
by PPSD, and so it really broke my heart that we couldn't do it this year, with the time frame that we were given.
But we are not the dancers, the musicians, the artists. We work with dancers, musicians. I mean, we've mentioned CD because he's very much on our mind and part of our 20th anniversary. But we work with artists, and all the artists Sam has just mentioned as artist educators. So I'm an artist at source, so the creativity is this. I know it's not playing on the piano, or I was a puppeteer, experimental puppeteer.
Yeah, many of us are artists and musicians, but we're not leading workshops.
Right. That's true.
We're finding artists.
You said you do most of your recruitment from schools. Out of schools.
For artists?
Not for artists, but for young people who are participating in the program. They basically out of schools, right?
Yeah, so we have 4 school districts that we're focusing on. Well, yeah, 4 core. CORE. Providence is one of them. And we're also we do a lot of programming in Central Falls and Pawtucket, as well as Narragansett. So we prioritize working with BIPOC students and high needs, low income areas that are close to home primarily. So being that we are Providence based, you know, we would love to continue to expand our programming here. It had been great having funding for Olneyville specifically in the past, so having CDBG funding to expand into Providence would really be a beautiful thing for education. We would love to do more programming right where we are. Where our many of ours are, yeah.
Just one, I'm calling myself. No, I want to try to understand, you don't do recreation centers, you don't work with young people in the recreation department?
We would love to, work.
That's
with
where most of them are at risk, you know, and they utilize that center to really have a base, so.
Yeah,
We have found in terms of partnerships that, this, year ago, last December, we brought ice dancers from Montreal who also did a skating workshop with students, but students from the rec centers, because of our partnerships, were bussed in to be part of that performance. So even though we're 20 years old, we are pretty entrepreneurial, and Sam is talking about murals. We are talking about rec centers as the summer programs grow.
yeah, and in connection with the artists that are performing in the parks, we're talking about
That's
that.
great, I love the parks, a lot of them, so, yeah.
Yeah,
So, are you the only, at one point, art used to be, like a subject in school. Are you the only ones that's providing art right now in the in school spirit? Or do they have a curriculum around art?
it depends on the school. I think that
Depends
there's,
on the school.
yeah, I think that there's art requirements in some capacity in most schools. How much art kids are actually getting and what that, like, is it coming through like English, you know, or is there an art teacher? I've been lucky to work with art teachers at schools, visual art teachers as well as music teachers. Very few schools have dance programs and theater programs. So it's very special to go into schools where there isn't programming, and to be able to work with like advisory groups or, you know, gym, and come in and bring artists in and activate space that way, with students who don't usually work with professional artists like that.
How often are you in schools?
Throughout the school year.
Oh, like every day?
Not every day, but like spring is kind of a hot spot because by spring I have our artist educator residencies booked. So right now they're in action, and so I'm visiting schools to support the artist educators. And throughout the year, when we have a visiting group like Small Island Big Songs, there will be weeks where I'm in the schools like every day. But if artists are in town.
And joined by members of our team as possible.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what.
That's great, thank you. Yep, Councilwoman Grace.
Well, you asked one of my questions.
No, okay, you have a
Right.
second one.
The second one is, why did I miss it? Seems like you skipped a lot of area. You did, we're loving together with Providence and Central Falls and Pawtucket. And then you just doing Narragansett. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So, can I take that, part of what we were exploring as a model and aren't right now, but was schools that could afford our services and how that made possible services going forward. So Narragansett, and we would love to see this, and did in Pawtucket actually, but multiply, but applied for a grant to work with us. So it's different than us going here, but we have a lot of conversation about that, you know, and I think Nick was talking about, you know, where is Mission Creek, the idea that we are centered in serving BIPOC students, and in one year ago's analysis, 80%, I think this is right, of the artists we presented were artists, BIPOC artists. So, you know, we're always evolving, but Narragansett, the short story is that they worked to apply for a 3-year grant to have services with us. And I think the longer story of sustainability, and we have been approached for some of the bigger education grants, is to form the relationships so that we have a really passionate case-making team at our office to raise the funds to keep sustaining, to bring from outside and inside, Rhode Island.
Follow up on that?
Yes.
Councilman Tyler.
Well, I mean, this one.
Okay, Councilman Green.
I'm sorry. You're looking for another staff. Did you, talk to AmeriCorps? Cause this sounds like they used to have like an arts component, for different ones and. A
Yeah,
lot of
that's
them
a really good idea.
either retired or ones that, want to put some time into, to the, city and not, they get a stipend, you get a stipend, don't get a lot of money, but they want to do something with the arts and still do it because I worked with them years ago and they were really, really fabulous. I mean, we had some really good artists in all the venues, I mean, and it was fabulous, so I don't know if they still have it, but.
Well, thank you for reawakening that thought. That was very much front and center and a lot of things are. This proposal is not for that, filling that position, just to say it's much more essential than that, but the AmeriCorps is right, should really be reactivated by us. All right. You're done, Council.
Through the chair. I was just, wanted to piggyback in the sense of the question in reference to, really, as your mission and continues to expand through the state, that's why I asked the question. I would just say in essence that it is encouraging to hear that you're also expanding to other communities because as we all know, music, food, and dancing really brings people together and we go learn from one another. And as we like to also say as Rhode Islanders now is that people at times don't want to cross the bridge. Not Washington Bridge, but the Newport Bridge. So I'm not sure if you guys are also in your strategic plan, reaching out to Newport as, we know that Newport for many people may be seen as this is where the Great Mansion is, this is where the wealth is, but the reality is the fourth city in the state of Rhode Island that lacks resources, and it's also minority community that don't have those type of support. So I would encourage, if it's not on your strategic plan, to reach out to Newport because I think there's a community there that really needs also those type of support that you have had homegrown in Rhode Island, and now you could also complement Newport.
I appreciate you saying that. We do have a relationship with Newport School District, primarily with Pell Elementary School, primarily through a champion, Mark McKenna, who has his fingers very deep into the community and all of the students that are in that elementary school.
And brings them here.
And brings them to our programs, which is rare for a faraway school to come into the city like that.
I mean, and we can, our kids could actually go to Newport too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some kids that have grown up in Providence that rarely in their younger years don't get to see the beach, don't get to see the geographic of Rhode Island. So that's the perspective that someone growing up here too, I learned about Newport even I think after I graduated from high school when I joined the military, but it wasn't a place that you could visit. But I think that that's a good bridge, a good strategy that to see the homegrown first works do. So, all right.
Thank you.
Any more questions or comments or reflections? First of all, thank you for sharing such great work with us and the excitement. Just the excitement of you talking about the arts is like, rejuvenating. Like you said, good food, entertainment is really very much a part of our city. So thank you for all you do. And thank you for coming here tonight, presenting to us, and thank you for staying such a long time after your long day today. So we appreciate you. And if there's no other comments or anything, Councilwoman, great, one more thing, is that the? Okay.
To adjourn?
Oh, that's what you want to, okay. I guess, Councilwoman, yes.
Exhibit two.
Oh, did you get
She already did. She already did it. Yes.
Yeah.
I messed up there.
See? I was pretty bad. All right, if there's no more business before this humble body, I would entertain a motion to continue this item,
So moved.
item one,
Item one.
which is
Yeah.
the block. Motion been made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Second,
Councilwoman Vargas, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Machado and then Councilwoman Vargas. All in favor? Aye. All right, meeting adjourned. In favor?
motion to adjourn.
Motion to
Okay,
adjourn.
I made the motion.
You did, yes.
Yeah.
you made the motion.
I don't know.
Okay, she has to do it again because this is the end.
Yeah, this is, yeah, I make the motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Okay, motion to adjourn, second. Okay.
Yeah.
Motion, second, all in favor, aye. So let's adjourn. Thank you, so I got screwed up with.
Yeah.
So I will, the other. And then I will get out.
All right.
Yeah. that's-
Yeah, we may.
Thank you for
Thank
this.
you.
Thank you.
We can go. Appreciate you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, great. Thank you.